Let's begin. Before we truly get into this video, I just want to say that if you have even a passing interest in playing Outer Wilds, click off this video and go play it right now. It's a game about the wonder and dread that comes from searching through a vast plain of mostly unmapped terrain, and seeing even a little bit of that here may take away from that experience. So go, and please promise to come back and watch the video later. Please. Outer Wilds is a 2019 game developed by Mobius Digital, a studio founded by Masi Oka, who you may remember as an actor who played a main character on the TV show Heroes. For some reason that's my favourite piece of Outer Wilds trivia and I will never not bring it up. You play as a Hearthian, genderless aliens who live on the cozy planet of Timberhearth. Their culture prioritises space travel, and they travel the solar system in patchwork yet effective spaceships to discover the history behind their little corner of the universe. Your character is a newbie to space travel, referred to frequently as hatchling. It's the day of their big launch, their first adventure out into the cosmos, so you retrieve the launch codes to your ship, blast off on your adventure, and 20 minutes in the sun goes supernova and consumes everything. The next minute, you wake up back at the campfire right at the start of your quest, and the whole loop starts all over again. Your objective, therefore, is to discover the secrets of the solar system in 20-minute increments. While this seems like a pretty impossible task, you do have several tools to help you. There's a jetpack to navigate a planet's tricky corners, a scout drone that can be sent to spy ahead, and of course your trusty ship. Installed on the ship is by far your most useful device, a computer that saves important pieces of information you've gained from each planet, recording the knowledge you acquire from previous loops and transferring it into future ones. This means you're not starting completely from scratch whenever you're horribly devoured by the sun's flames, and always gives you access to a jumping off point when starting new runs. This knowledge helps you link together bits of data and clues from one planet to the next. A translated note left on Giant's Deep might help you get into a secret facility on Brittle Hollow, or teach you how to activate a particular device, and save you 10 precious minutes of time at the beginning of each run. Some people will hate me for making this comparison, but it's a bit like playing a Metroidvania, if instead of items and upgrades you just learned how to navigate the world, and if the backtracking was actually fun. If you know what you're doing, it's entirely possible to completely sequence break and complete the whole game in about 10 minutes. There's no series of locked doors or platform you need an upgrade to jump up to, just you knowing where to go and what to do is enough, but obviously if you hadn't played the game beforehand, you wouldn't have any of that information. So you set off again and again, repeatedly throwing yourself into the unseen corners of the solar system to uncover whatever little scraps and clues you can, knowing all along the inevitability of your end at the hands of that giant lambent sphere just out of the corner of your eye. However, despite its morbid premise, Outer Wilds, from start to finish, is a resoundingly optimistic experience. I don't just mean it's a good game, by now I think it's pretty obvious I believe that. I'm talking about how the different elements within the game all work to promote positive outlooks, whether it's the feedback offered by the gameplay or the story's positive outlook towards bonds that can be formed between different entities. And here's the big final spoiler warning: the rest of the video will contain major spoilers for all aspects of Outer Wilds, including the recently released DLC Echoes of the Eye. So if you've not finished the game or want to play it, just go ahead and play it first. Please, it's really good. The most obvious first thing to talk about is the game's exploration, and how rewarding Outer Wilds gameplay is. Part of this is down to your identity as a solo adventurer, both as the player and the player character. Going into the world completely clueless, with just a ship and a few tools at your disposal, puts you right in the shoes of the Hearthian you play as, with both of you being essentially pioneers of a completely unknown environment. Aside from a few veteran explorers who took off before you, there's no standard for you to live up to. No big legend who's mapped everything out and in whose footprints you need to follow. Your character and you know as much about the solar system as anyone else, and your discoveries are all completely new. It's one of a couple things Outer Wilds does to complement the player. It makes you feel special and emphasises the things you uncover in-game as a result. Oh look, you're the first to find this hidden city. What untouched mysteries could lie within? Is it dangerous? Is there someone here? You have no idea what to expect, and it enhances the sense of exploration that's, well, the whole focal point of the game. Once you've exhausted all the secrets the planet has to offer, you really feel as though you've accomplished something huge. You've figured out what the planet has to hide, you've solved the puzzles, and navigated the unknown alien wilderness in front of you. In the process, all of these accomplishments are enhanced by you being, canonically, the first one to accomplish them. The very act of solving these puzzles also provides an insatiable ego boost, as if while demonstrating how cool and smart its puzzles are, the game also wants to compliment you on your tenacity and ingenuity. Each planet, and sometimes each individual sector of the planet, operates according to a certain logic, so figuring out and following the rules to arrive at a natural conclusion feels insanely rewarding. You've solved the puzzle, yes, but you've also understood the reasoning behind the puzzle in the first place, and how it even came to be. It's a double hit of positive feedback that also leaves you in awe of how great the design behind this game is. On one hand, you're impressed at how galaxy brain the game devs are to come up with this stuff, but then you also feel like you're a little bit galaxy brained for solving it. Just a little. The non-linear nature of the game also eases a lot of the potential annoyance that could come about if you get stuck on a puzzle. While it's true that not knowing how to untangle an area can be frustrating, you're never at a complete dead end. Your ship's computer organises your information planet by planet and even region by region, so if you get stuck, you can just take a break and go look for something else to do. The sense of satisfaction that Outer Wilds delivers dwarfs almost anything other games can offer. It also uses more, shall we say, ethical methods of delivering positive reinforcement compared to certain other genres. I'm thinking specifically of those games that feature big, flashing numbers and bright text whenever the player takes even a minor action, force-feeding dopamine into your animal brain and feeding addictive behaviours. Outer Wilds provides a better sense of feedback than those games could hope for without even trying, and without using any gross manipulative techniques to do so. It's so strange, I came away from this game feeling hope for the future of gaming? Really weird. Not only is the game fun to play, but it feels good to play too, rewarding the player on almost every level. However, the sense of positivity in Outer Wilds isn't limited to the gameplay alone. In fact, the bulk of its optimism can be found in the presentation of its story and characters. For a game revolving around the annihilation of a solar system, its message is uplifting, containing a sense of hope towards life, the connections we form with others, and the change we can enact as a result. The first example of this can be found in your relationship with the other explorers from Outer Wilds Ventures, the outer space exploration team to which you belong. On almost every planet, you'll stumble across one of these explorers, usually by following the sound from their musical instruments or smoke from their campfire. They're more than happy to share bits of info about their search, useful strategies to aid your research, or sometimes pure existential despair. No matter what, their presence reminds you that you aren't alone out here. While you are still a pioneer making momentous discoveries on your lonesome, the presence of these explorers shows that there's at least someone out here you can swap ideas with. They lend a familiarity to your experience, turning the solar system from a cold, imposing entity into something that feels more like a home. Whenever you reset a loop, they'll still be there in their same reliable places, noticeable whenever you pass by. There's a sense of comfort to picking up the tune they're playing when you're on the other side of the system, or checking back in with them whenever you discover something new. They're the closest things you have to companions on this journey, and though they can't be with you all the time, knowing they're out here too eases the trepidation you might otherwise feel. Their existence also serves to introduce players to another positive message, specifically that there are benefits to working with others to make something great. While your individual discoveries are important and worthy of acclaim, Outer Wilds presents its archaeological effort as a collaborative one. Coming together and working with your allies is presented as a worthwhile endeavour, miles away from the lonely trek this adventure would otherwise be. The idea of connection and collaboration is developed further as Outer Wilds progresses, eventually introducing two other key individuals who form a meaningful connection with the player. These encounters serve to prove how shared experiences and universal values can create bonds between us and others, even if these others are from a completely different species. During their adventure, the player discovers that many thousands of years ago their solar system was populated by a nomadic species known as the Nomai. The Nomai arrived following a signal from something enigmatically referred to as the Eye of the Universe. Curious to find out exactly what the eye was, they colonized the then empty solar system in an attempt to study it. As you hop from planet to planet, uncovering the Nomai civilization and translating their spirally writing, you develop an affinity with them. You learn about the games their children play, the romantic relationships they form, and, most relevantly, the insatiable sense of curiosity with which they approach the universe. Though you may only be reading notes and scrambling through ancient ruins, you can still feel the Nomai's presence all around you, and the more you discover, the more they feel like fellow travellers on your journey. They've been dead for thousands of years, with a society presumably stretching back thousands more, but their desire to explore the unknown and enhance their knowledge and understanding of the universe continues to resonate both with the Harthian culture of the player character and with the player themselves. Just like the Nomai, you and your avatar are intrepid, curious explorers searching for answers. Playing the game to completion requires an inquiring and dedicated mind, and learning that the Nomai possess similar traits within their culture only makes you feel more fond towards them. I guess it's sort of a parasocial bond, but it's a bond nonetheless. The fragments and snippets of Nomai personality you pick up throughout the game culminate in a final, optional encounter. Having pieced together little bits of knowledge regarding so-called quantum objects, the player navigates a disappearing celestial body known as the Quantum Moon, a holy location for the Nomai. Following your nose eventually leads you to a mysterious location where the last Nomai in the solar system, Solanum, is waiting. While the two of you don't speak the same language, you're still able to have a rudimentary conversation thanks to your translation device and a series of patterned stones summoned by Solanum. You've been learning about the Nomai throughout the entire game as if they're long dead, and right at the end, after working out the truth behind the Quantum Moon, you finally get to meet one in the flesh. Your conversation covers a few topics: the eye of the universe, the Quantum Moon itself, and most poignantly, yourself and Solanum. Despite the massive differences between your species, Solanum feels a certain affinity with you, meeting in such a sacred place with similar goals, and thus considers you a friend. You've not only met a member of this ancient species who were building high-powered gravity cannons while your kind was still evolving, but you've been able to connect with her as well. This encounter, after everything you've been through throughout the game, is amazing and the best reward Outer Wilds could have offered you for the work you put in. The meeting is meaningful and emotional, serving as a climax to one of the game's main threads of inquiry and deepening your connection with the Nomai. But Solanum isn't the only contact you have with beings of a different species. The game's DLC, Echoes of the Eye, introduces a new planet to explore, the Stranger, and an owl-like species who travelled to and inhabited the solar system years before the Nomai. They aren't named in the game, so I'm just going to go ahead and refer to them as the owls. Yeah, that's as creative as I can bother being. Unlike the Nomai, about whom the Harthians already had some cursory knowledge, for the owls you have absolutely nothing to go on. This makes your journey into their world both fascinating and anxiety-inducing. When you first arrive at the Stranger, there's no sign of the owls anywhere. All that's left are their ruined dwellings, bits and pieces of light-based technology, and an unusual giant underwater vault. After further exploration, we find a slide projector and burned slides that impart the history of the Stranger, in which we're introduced to these weird-looking guys for the first time. Well, you think, they may be kind of freaky, but at least they're not on this planet anymore, though there is a conspicuous lack of corpses. Then, after learning how to manipulate their mysterious lanterns, you're able to enter a parallel, dreamy dimension within the Stranger, and soon enough, you find out exactly where they are. Unlike the Nomai, who provoke a sense of wonder and intrigue, the owls are just plain scary. Standing at about 7 feet tall and encountered in absolute darkness, they thoroughly oppose the player's encroachment on their territory, hunting you down by lamplight and swiftly ejecting you from their world if they catch you. Where the Nomai clearly shared the same passion and goals as the player character and their species, the owls seem completely antagonistic, with no potential for bonding or the mutual exchange of knowledge that made the meeting with Solanum so special. As a result, it doesn't seem like you're going to form any common understanding with them, leaving you with the impression that they're an aggressive, exclusionary species. At this point, it seems like the DLC is trying to undo the optimistic approach that the main game had towards alien contact. Rather than suggest there may be room for compromise and consensus as with the Nomai, Outer Wilds seems to be going back to the age-old idea seen in so much other media that aliens are dangerous and threatening. However, the more you learn about the owls, the more this impression starts to slip away. Soon enough you start to piece together their backstory. You learn that they used to worship the Eye of the Universe and strip their homeland of resources to power the stranger and move closer to it. However, upon learning of the Eye's terrible destructive power, they rejected it entirely. Now trapped in a distant solar system and grievously regretting what they'd done to their planet, the owls blocked the Eye's signal and retreated into a virtual reality reconstruction of their home, living eternally within the same dreamlike state that you met them in. Once the context for their actions becomes clearer, it becomes a lot harder to paint these beings as truly villainous creatures. Your presence in their world, and especially your intrusion upon the secrets hidden within, is an invasion of their privacy. All the owls really want to do is grieve the loss of their society in peace, taking refuge in an illusion that reminds them of the home they loved so much. Now you've learned the truth behind their history, it's hard to feel anything but pity towards these supposed antagonists. Though your encounters with the owls may not necessarily be positive, they're still painted as circumstantial opponents rather than evil villains, and are treated with a certain level of dignity. They're still sentient entities with thoughts, feelings, and regrets, which endears the player to them no matter how scary they might be. This generous depiction shows that even the more negative aspects of Outer Wilds are given the respect they deserve, treated as a valid part of the universe like anything else. But this bittersweet observation isn't all Echoes of the Eye has to offer. The DLC concludes with an emotional encounter, bringing back the base game's optimistic outlook on collaboration with others, reinforcing and crystallizing these views in a definitive way. By circumventing glitches within the Owl's VR system, you're eventually able to open that giant conspicuous vault I mentioned earlier. Once you venture inside, first impressions seem to reinforce the same horror elements we've seen in the DLC so far. The entrance alone is unnerving, made worse by the fact that you know something is locked in here that even the already scary owls don't want getting out. As you walk down a cold stone corridor and a long flight of stairs, you can tell you're clearly entering a dungeon, heightening your anxiety and anticipation towards whatever's sealed inside. It also looks a lot like heading down to the well in Resi 8's Beneviento house, which, if you've played that game, obviously very traumatic. The path leads to what seems to be one of the owl's residences, setting the player on edge even further. Weren't we done with these guys by now? The setup telescope seems to imply that an individual's still living here. And then, as we descend in a lift to the bottom floor, our suspicions are confirmed at the sight of a single, shining lantern in the darkness. Tentatively, we approach it, and then, emerging like a phantom from the shadows, one final owl appears, the prisoner. At this moment, it looks like we've reached the end of the line, but then, going against everything we've seen of the owls so far, they stop. For this individual, your presence in their domain isn't an imposition or invasion. Upon noticing you're not hostile, they calm down, choosing instead to find a way to connect with a new arrival to their prison. The ensuing encounter with this being is one of the most emotionally affecting scenes I've seen in a game for a while. As with Solanum, your communication with them is severely limited because, obviously, you're two completely different species. Unlike with Solanum, however, you don't even have a way to translate anything the prisoner might say, creating a barrier that didn't exist during your encounter with the Nomai. The prisoner instead uses a device known as a vision torch, scanning their memories and showing you the final truth about what happened on the stranger. The prisoner chose to rebel against their kind, leaving the owl's illusion and temporarily unblocking the eye's signal. This action, a heinous crime, led to them being imprisoned indefinitely. After revealing their past, the prisoner offers the vision torch to the player, prompting them to return the favour. In a touching montage, the player projects their memories, revealing the deaths of the owls and the eventual fate of the stranger. They also reveal that the signal released by the prisoner eventually reached the Nomai, who followed it to the solar system and eventually ended up inspiring the Harthians' passion for exploration and discovery. Learning about the prisoner's past sheds light onto why their mood changed so suddenly after your initial encounter. Trapped in the vault, all alone for thousands of years, the prisoner's mind must have been a tempest of isolation and regret. Left in the darkness with no idea as to the fate of their peers, the outcome of their actions, or anything outside their solitary bubble. This loneliness is broken only by the arrival of the player. Seeing someone, anyone other than those that condemn them to this fate, eases the prisoner's anxiety, giving them a saviour and a chance to see what became of the outside world after their seclusion began. They can also see that their actions in releasing the eye's signal weren't for nothing. However, this isn't all that happens in the meeting. They give you a vision of their past, revealing the final piece of the puzzle you've been building since your arrival on the Stranger, and exposing the last truth that the owls tried to keep secret. This offering further separates the meeting with the prisoner from your experiences with the rest of their kind. The other owls sought to destroy the truth behind everything. They burned the slides holding their history, sealed what remained of their knowledge in a virtual world, and blocked the signal of the great cosmic power that they gave up their home to worship. The prisoner, however, reveals their knowledge freely and openly to the first being that enters their vault, showing a sense of candidness and trust that completely contradicts their peers' consensus. This willingness to take risks in order to reveal the truth can easily be compared with the zeal for discovery that the Harthians, and by proxy the player, possess. The prisoner can see that you've explored the depths of the Stranger, both real and virtual, and stopped at nothing to uncover its ultimate secret. In you, they have finally found a kindred spirit, one who seeks the pursuit of truth over security and empty comfort. This newfound bond, however, is tinged with the same sense of melancholy that permeates the rest of Outer Wilds, and though the experience is meaningful, it can't last. The prisoner's true body, after all, is dead. Once the vision is over, they bow deeply, thanking the player for everything they've given, and leave the vault. This is the last we see of them in person, but heading to a nearby shore shows that they left us one final, departing gift. Gazing into the lone artifact, we see a vision of the prisoner preparing a raft for departure, before beckoning to a figure at the side, you. Together, the two of you set off into the horizon, starting an adventure that would, regrettably, never have been possible. This last vision acts as a perfect coda to your time with the prisoner, and with the DLC as a whole. After all of this time trawling through the Stranger, learning about the owls' backstory, their tragedies, and the drastic action they eventually felt forced to take, your journey ends with an encounter that puts everything else you've seen into perspective. What's more, you've connected with another entity despite your huge cultural differences, a being that sees you as an equal, an ally, and, most poignantly, a friend. After seemingly using the owls to deliver a more negative message about contact between alien races, Outer Wilds does a complete about-face, giving us instead a more optimistic conclusion. It shows that cultures and civilizations aren't monoliths, bound to a single personality trait or philosophy. There will always be individuals within them that hold the potential to break with the status quo, to see through flawed consensus and pursue their own direction. These individuals then have the capacity to connect with other like-minded individuals across culture and species, their universal values allowing them to form powerful bonds. Just like your meeting with Solanum, the interactions with the prisoner serve as a breathtaking conclusion to an already incredible journey. Though these quests may be optional, getting to talk to real, living entities within this universe meant more to me as a reward than the game's canon main ending. This might just be my personal preference, but I love finding ways to interact with animals, babies, basically any life form that I can't communicate with conventionally. Having that communicative wall between you and the other party and still finding a way to incite laughter, excitement, or overall joy feels really special. It shows that though there may be huge differences between you, there will always be some things that, by way of being sentient life forms, we all have in common. It's the same feeling that makes these alien encounters in Outer Wilds so special. Despite coming from completely different backgrounds, the player's zest for adventure endears them to both Solanum and the prisoner, allowing for experiences that transcend the barriers before you. In the end, the three of you are all curious beings who are passionate about exploring the unknown. As a result, you're able to share so much in these fateful cosmic meetings, which are meaningful no matter how brief they may be. However, these meetings aren't all we see of these two, sort of. There's one final encounter that takes place right at the end of the main game, and brings all that Outer Wilds has to say about connections and cooperation to a definitive conclusion. After finding out that the entire universe might be fated to go the way of their solar system, the player uses a Nomai vessel to travel to the eye of the universe itself. We enter the enigmatic core of the eye, finding ourselves in a recreation of the Harthian homeworld that exists outside of time and space. By searching this area, you find versions of all of those you've formed connections with throughout your adventure: the 5 explorers, Solanum, and the prisoner. These entities, presumably summoned from your memories by the eye, gather around one of the game's iconic campfires. They work together and create a symphony that forms a ball of cosmic energy. Then, upon entering it, you collapse all possibilities and potentiality into a new Big Bang, creating a new universe to replace the dying one. This final scene is an enigmatic one, flying in the face of the main game's more logical approach to story, but still managing to wrap up Outer Wilds with the same melancholic, bittersweet energy that pervades the rest of the game. All of you realise that this is your last meeting, and that the universe will soon move on to another form of existence without you. However, this is far from the dour, depressing conclusion it could have been. Being reunited with all the individuals you made special connections with throughout the game gives this finale a happy feeling, like old friends gathering together for one last reunion. What's more, it serves as a powerful statement on what cooperation between different peoples can achieve. During this ritual, there are two participants of a different species who play instruments completely alien to the Harthians, yet their contributions to the song fit in perfectly, syncing up with the explorers and helping to form the new universe. You may not all have had the same experiences, but the symphony comes together regardless. The new universe isn't formed simply by activating some giant magic space seed. The player does it by recalling all of the connections they've made along their journey, assembling a diverse orchestra that embodies everything they've learned along the way. Though you initially set out looking for artifacts, technology and excitement, Outer Wilds' last moments are spent in the presence of a far more valuable treasure. Your friends and allies of all different shapes and sizes, working together to create something wonderful and new. The final message is clear, and the ultimate statement of optimism Outer Wilds has to offer. No matter who or what we are, our shared experiences can help form a unity that transcends anything, even among species that at first appear to be monolithic in terms of their approach to the world. There are some values that are universal, attracting like-minded individuals whose bonds will move the universe forward. The common ground we find with others will enable us to find comfort, bring about amazing opportunities to exchange knowledge and experiences, and accomplish the impossible. Whether it's the rewarding gameplay or the optimistic angle the story takes towards life and those we share it with, there's no better word to describe Outer Wilds than positive. It's a game that really wants to encourage you to keep going, to pick yourself up whenever you fall and give it another try, and rewards you when you eventually succeed with scenes that are truly beautiful. I'd never have thought that a game about the heat death of the universe would feel so warm. Even the music helps to build a cozy atmosphere. Though some background tracks are as dark and sinister as they need to be, the music you'll be listening to most of the time sounds like a collection of sleepy campfire instrumentals. The music reminds you of the generally low-stakes nature of your journey. Though the end of the universe is imminent, you're just going to go back in time anyway, so why not relax a little and enjoy the ride? It's clear that the developers wanted you to enjoy and get something out of playing their game, and obviously I think they truly succeeded. It's rare to play a game in which you actually feel respected as a player, in which the game sees your time as being valuable and tries to make it as worthwhile as possible, and Outer Wilds is one of the best examples of a game that does this. It also instilled a sense of optimism in me towards future contact with alien species in our universe. Stephen Hawking once remarked that making contact with aliens would be disastrous for humanity, and could lead to an outcome similar to the colonial genocides committed against indigenous peoples. Outer Wilds shows the other side to this coin. Rather than being brutal warlords hell-bent on conquest, other species might value life, aesthetics, and the pursuit of knowledge just as we do. Beings that live a long distance away might actually have attitudes far closer to home. With this understanding, maybe there's hope for our universe too. Thanks for watching. I originally wasn't going to have a conclusion like this because I want my videos to be sort of purer nowadays. As in, they consist of what I have to say about the video and no intro, conclusion, no fourth wall breaking. However, as we're at the end of the year and I don't have the energy to make that big 2020 wrap-up video I kept mentioning on Twitter, it feels appropriate to put all that stuff here instead. It's been a tough year for everyone, and though I don't have it as bad as a lot of people, I have struggled somewhat. It's been great to see my channel get a lot more attention, and I'm grateful for everyone that watches my videos, though it has also been depressing to not get the motivation to work on said videos as much as I'd like. I don't know much about the YouTube algorithm, but I do know it likes constant, consistent uploads, which well, I don't think I need to point out that I'm not consistent at all. It's something I have come to accept over the last month or so, and it has brought me a lot of comfort, just letting go of the stress to rush video work or uploads and just treat this as the hobby it should be. I'm also going to change my Patreon to charge whenever I finish a video rather than monthly. I think that's more fair for the people that decide to contribute. But regardless, I hope everyone enjoyed the videos I managed to get done this year. I've always said that I'd keep going for as long as I have video ideas, and I have got a few planned for this year, including a pretty heavy trilogy of videos that will probably come out around mid-year, so look out for those. Or don't. It's really up to you. Well, I don't think there's anything more to say. Thanks for your support, have a happy new year, and with that,